Greetings, anatomy students. Today we are going to learn about spinal nerves. You guys already have the notes packet that goes along with this PowerPoint. We are starting on page 3 of that packet, and this is slide 13. So let's start, first of all, by just reminding ourselves that we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and 8 of them are considered cervical, 12 are thoracic, 5 are lumbar, 5 are sacral, and 1 is originating in the coccyx. And these spinal nerves are mixed nerves, which means that they are carrying both sensory and motor information. So that's your answer to number 16. All right, moving on to the next slide. Here you've got a picture of the spinal cord, and I believe that you have seen this picture previously. Here we have the anterior median fissure. So this side here is the anterior aspect of our spinal cord. And I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things about the different roots. So for instance, the dorsal root, which is right here, the dorsal root is going to be accompanied by a bulge. There's one here, and the actual label for it is over here. This is the dorsal root ganglion. And the cell bodies of sensory neurons or of afferent neurons are what are collected within that dorsal root ganglion. So that's your answer to number 17. Notice that the dorsal root ganglia are located very close to the spinal cord, so they are running right next to that cord. And I'm making that distinction because we are going to be talking about other ganglia that are not going to be close to the spinal cord, so I'm trying to make that distinction for you early. Number 19 is asking about the nerve cell bodies of motor neurons. Well, the nerve cell bodies of motor neurons are going to be found here in the anterior horn of the gray matter of the spinal cord. And then all of that information is going to flow down the front of the spinal cord, out the ventral root, and then out to the rest of the body. So remember that our sensory information is going to come in the back and then go up to the brain, while the motor information is going to come down the brain and then exit through the front, down from the brain, excuse me, and then exit through the front aspect of the spinal cord itself. Okay, please turn your notes packet to page 4, and we are going to move our slide now to slide 15, where we're going to talk about what happens to the spinal nerves as they progress. So the spinal nerves are going to divide into dorsal and ventral rami. So you're going to get a branch of a spinal nerve that kind of swings around towards the back side of the body. That's the dorsal rami. And then you're going to have a larger branch that swings around to the front or the anterior aspect of the body. That's the ventral rami. The rami are also mixed. So they're going to contain both sensory and motor fibers. The dorsal rami, the ones that are going to flip around to the back of the body, are going to innervate the skin and the muscles of the posterior body trunk, while the ventral rami in the thoracic area, the ones that arise from T1 through T12, they are going to form what are called intercostal nerves. So inter means between, and costal is going to refer to the ribs. And so these are nerves that innervate the muscles in between the ribs. And when those muscles are stimulated, they contract and they're going to increase the volume of the thoracic cage, thereby allowing us to breathe. And we'll talk more about the mechanism of breathing when we get to our respiratory system. So aside from the rami that extend from the thoracic area, the cervical, the lumbar, sacral, they are all going to form what are known as nerve plexuses. A nerve plexus is a complex network of nerves that serve the sensory and motor needs of the limbs. So we're talking about the arms and the legs here. So as you look at number 26 on page 4, your answer for that is true. The spinal nerves in the thoracic area do not participate in nerve plexuses because they are busy forming the intercostal nerves. Now, the picture that you have at the bottom of page 4, you also have on this slide. So this is just showing you the formation of the dorsal and the ventral rami. So basically, we have sliced the body with a transverse section, and we're looking down upon the area that we cut. So the anterior of the body is on the left side of your screen. And what that means is that like the sternum might be like right about here. And over on the other side, you can see that we have our spinal cord with the gray matter. You can see that here is the ventral root, so that's carrying motor information, while our dorsal root here, which is going to extend from the dorsal root ganglion, that's carrying sensory information. And this area here that I'm just kind of circling in orange, this is our spinal nerve. So the spinal nerve just extends a very short way. It's not very long at all. And then where I'm putting this little pink star, it's going to split. So it's going to swing around to the front of the body, forming the central ramus, and then swing around to the back of the body, forming the dorsal ramus. Now the ventral rami, the ones that are in the thoracic area, as I mentioned, they're forming intercostal nerves, but all the rest of them are forming nerve plexuses. All of the dorsal rami are going to innervate the skin and muscles of the posterior body trunk, so they don't participate in formation of nerve plexuses either. Okay. So as we take a look at our next picture, you can go ahead and flip your notes packet to page 5 because you're going to see this as well. Here you can see that this part here is showing us kind of a lateral view of the vertebral column and the spinal cord within. So here we have 8 cervical nerves. And I know you're probably like, yeah, but there's only 7 cervical vertebrae. Well, you see, the nerves, the spinal nerves, are all going to extend from the top of the vertebrae that they're numbered for. So nerve C1 is actually coming out of the spinal cord above the vertebrae C1, and the nerve C2 comes out of the spinal cord above the bone that's labeled C2. But C8 is a little bit different. C8 actually extends away from the spinal cord after cervical vertebra 7. Okay. Oh, and by the way, all of that I just said, that's all down here. All right, so the ventral rami are going to form the cervical plexus. So C1 through C5, that's going to form the cervical plexus, while C5 through C8 and T1 are going to form the brachial plexus. So these are the nerves that are going to serve the arms. as I mentioned, no plexus is formed from nerves T2 through T12. The lumbar plexus is going to form from nerves L1 through L4. And then finally, the sacral plexus is going to form from L4 to L5 and from nerves S1 through S4, so the ones that are coming out of the sacrum as well. Okay, so these are all the nerves that are actually forming the plexuses, but what do these plexuses do? So let's take a look at that here. As you can see, the plexus is kind of like a bunch of nerve fibers that are braided together. And there are a couple of things to know. Again, intercostal nerves, T1 through T12, they're the ones that are going to form, are not forming any plexuses at all. The cervical plexus is going to contain a nerve called the phrenic nerve. And the phrenic nerve is going to innervate the diaphragm. So it's just an important nerve to know because it's going to help us with our breathing. The brachial plexus is going to serve the upper limbs. The lumbar plexus is going to serve the abdomen, hip, thigh, and leg. And the sacral nerve is going to serve the leg and the gluteal area, and it is going to contain another really important nerve, which is called the sciatic nerve. And that is all you need to know about the nerve plexuses and the spinal nerves. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you soon in class. Take care.